to Insomniac Hour, where we talk about sleepless things that keep us up at night. And I don't know if you guys noticed the difference, but there is no Josh. So let's just have a quick moment of silence for Josh. No, I'm kidding. He's right here. He's watching, but he's going to let me rock solo on this one. And that's because I have a lot to talk about, finally. We're going to talk about something called the Carrington event. Happened in either 56 or 59. I believe it was 59. And it was basically a astronomer that was going to look at the sun. And here he goes, does daily thing, takes his big telescope, he looks at the sun, and he notices something very, very strange. Now, just to give you an overall of the whole thing, the sun emits X rays, M rays, G rays, L rays, whatever kind of rays they are. A lot of different forms of energy. Some of it is radiation that we get when we get sunburnt, and others we don't really feel much. And that's because the Earth has a geomagnetic field around it that protects us from these rays. Now, on top of those, there's also something called coronal mass ejections. Coronal mass ejections are little like outbursts of the sun, but in this case, it's plasma. So the energy is not just radiation. It's significant enough to where if it penetrates the Earth's geomagnetic field, it could really, really disrupt our lives today. Now, in 1859, and when Carrington did witness this, there was pandemonium that ensued, but luckily there were no smartphones back then, and not even real phones, telephones. There was telegraphs, and telegraphs all around the world went completely haywire. There was transformers that were blowing up on the side of the road. People were injured by them. Like, it was pretty bad for the elementary style of electricity that we were doing back then. Today, an event of such magnitude will be devastating. Like, it would be one of the worst things that could happen to us, because depending upon where the coronal mass ejection was facing Earth. So these things happen all the time. And the sun goes through cycles where it happens more frequently than not. And right now we are in the beginning of one of those cycles. The good thing for us is that it's very rare that the coronal mass ejection aligns to the US portion of the Earth. But should that happen, the power grids would essentially be down. And not down because of a transformer that blew. It would be down because of a power surge. So if there's not enough power, obviously it goes down, everyone loses power. But if there's a power surge, it overloads everything. It blows up, literally. And there's no more electricity. So now you have to really, really start from the ground zero to rebuild everything. Now, the North American grid is running at capacity and has been for a very long time, much like the subway systems that we use in New York City are like decades old. We haven't really updated too much, although we have had obviously significant increases in electricity usage and containment. There's pretty much 9 main bases, 9 main sections or buildings, if you were, that control the entire North American grid. Those 9 buildings are not very heavily guarded. In fact, somebody with a small grenade and a couple of bandits could take over one of those buildings. So if those bandits increase to 30, all those 9 buildings can go and America loses power. No one's that crazy, so no one's done that yet, but we're going to get to that in a second. What happens is the geomagnetic field of the Earth could not sustain such an impact with coronal mass ejection, which is the plasma, and all these different bombardment of radiation. And it sends an electromagnetic pulse, and it basically short circuits every piece of electronic equipment around, period. And I'm talking about cars, and police implement this because police shoot an EMP at you if you're trying to get away from them, to shut down your car. But anything electric. So, your laptop may work if you preserve it correctly, and I will get into that in a second, but it'll be a paperweight because there will be no internet. Maybe you could play Flappy Bird on your phone, but that's about it. There's no communication. Now, most people don't know about this. Most people aren't aware that this is a possibility, even like in the realm of possibility. Not only is it a possibility, it is a probability that it was going to happen, and it's going to happen soon. The closest I can get you to a date is relatively soon. That's all I got. And I think it was actually the guy that does the remote viewing that we were going to interview on this show was the one talking about it. He was saying that soon there will be a Mad Max type of event where everybody in the earth, or at least in the United States, would be kind of without electricity. Think about what that means. Now, I don't know where most of you are, but I am close to New York City, close enough to where I used to work in New York City, daily commute. I'm lucky to be far enough away to where it's a secluded area in Jersey, and I got some deer over here, and I got this, and I got that. If you're in the middle of, the middle of America, like if you're just got got a big ranch or a big farm, a big house, you're still not okay, but you're good. And this is what I mean. Picture Chicago. Picture Manhattan at 5 p.m. on a Friday night, when the influx of people is, I think, goes up to 11 million. So I think 4 million people commute daily in and out just for work from Manhattan. And the power goes out everywhere, the whole city. Now, I've seen the lights go out on Broadway before. Really, though, I was there for the blackout. It was a rolling blackout. It wasn't bad. It was like 2 days. But this would be something similar to that, or at least people would think it was, because nobody would really know what's going on. And the word can't spread quick enough because there's no electricity to spread the word. So what happens when there's no electricity? 2 weeks, and there's no food in the supermarkets, at best. And this is like everywhere in the country. In Manhattan, it would be much quicker than that. Why? Well, there's no trucks to drive the food. There's no refrigerators to contain the food. There's no electricity, remember? Yeah. So basically, Mad Max would ensue in Manhattan, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles. Any metropolis of an area would be completely fucked. Well, so what do we do? First of all, when is this coming? Nobody knows. We had one in 2009, but it missed us by 9 days. And I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And basically what happens is the light from the sun, like if I'm a light particle that I'm leaving the sun, to get to the earth is 8 minutes, just over 8 minutes, 500 seconds. Obviously, if you're seeing the light with a telescope, you're seeing it, it's hitting your eyes, so it's instant. But basically, like as it progresses. Now, the plasma that comes out from a CME, or a coronal mass ejection, takes anywhere from a day to 3 days, depending upon the density of the solar winds. So solar winds is basically, that's basically exactly what it is. It's the force that the energy is getting hurled at the earth, right? So 3 days it would take for it to happen. But for those 3 days to happen, we would have to notice it, then warn everyone, and then alert, everyone, pretty much say, hey guys, we're going to be out of power for at least 3 months. Because like I said, you have to build from the scratch up. Like, have you ever seen Escape from New York or Escape from LA, Snake Plissken? At the end of the movie, he hits the little satellite thing and he basically sends everybody back to the Stone Age. That's essentially what's going to happen, but it's not going to be Snake Plissken, it's going to be the sun doing it. So it's pretty scary to think what would happen if that was the case. But there's something even more alarming about this whole situation. We had a near event a couple of weeks ago, and it was nothing significant to where it blocked any power out or anything like that. But again, it just missed by a little bit. But during that time, when it was happening, and you can get an app, by the way, download. It's called Space Weather Live, and it will give you alerts for those kind of things. So we got an alert that, there's a possibility. We have a big CME, a radio type 2 emission, and a solar flare. That's the trifecta, right? And right at that moment, in those same, I think 2 hours, domestic terrorists attempted an attack on the pipeline. What does that mean? Well, that means that there are people other than the government, and you and I and whoever else wants to watch and monitor this activity, are also monitoring. But they're not monitoring it to stay safe. They're monitoring to take advantage and to take offense, or to play the offense, so to speak. So domestic terrorists attacked the pipeline, meaning if the power went out, the only thing we have to rely on is gas. You know, I mean, obviously generators will power electricity. Solar panels will power electricity. Although if your solar panel is out while this thing is happening, obviously it's not going to power shit. Right? So now all the lights go out. And the only thing that we are dependent on is gas, which is obviously going to be a huge deal too, because of, you know, obvious reasons. But domestic terrorists succeed in taking over the pipeline. Now, that little scenario that I just painted is Mad Max from 0 to 100, like real quick. Because most people don't realize, like, it doesn't take a very long time for drastic things to happen. It actually happens very, very fast. And it's the recovery part that is the strenuous and difficult part, obviously. An earthquake is only a couple of seconds, but look at the destruction it causes. Now, this being out of power, most people won't know what's going on until it's too late. Most people won't even realize that there's no food in the supermarkets because there's no trucks in the entire country. Not to mention, if it was to happen just to us, the United States, that means for the most part, the rest of the world would still be with power. So anyone that wanted to step on our toes in terms of like China or, you know, whoever would be freely able to do so. And we would have no way to fight back. We'd have no GPS, nothing, zero. Everyone's flying blind. So the fact that the terrorists tried to attack the pipeline means that they know and they're aware and they're watching. They're keeping their fingers on, their beat on it. So what can we do? What is there to do? What are we going to fight? We're going to fight the terrorists? Well, we can't really do that. Not yet. So what you can do is the simplest possible thing ever, which was already put you like miles ahead of somebody that's not doing this. Next time you have a couple of minutes, you're sitting down, maybe doing stuff. Take a piece of paper, and not your phone, but a piece of paper, and write a list, 10 things of what you would do if the power went out right now. What would you do? What was your first step? You know what I mean? I'm going to get my MREs. I'm going to get my bug out bag. I'm going to go sit in the mountains. I'm going to go in the basement. I got to, whatever it is, write the outline. And if and when it does happen, because I do believe that it's going to happen within our lifetime, you won't be the person that's like, holy shit, Tumultuous is fucking talking about this whole time. What do we do? That is the last question you want to ask yourself during a situation like that is, what do we do? Because it's too late. You're screwed. If you have a 10-step plan, at least, you know, you have an idea. Then you know your first step, by the way, should be don't panic. Because panicking is one of the worst possible things you can do. That's how people get trampled. That's how Manhattan will fall, probably, and Chicago and all those other cities, because I cannot imagine a skyscraper, just one building filled with 120 apartments losing power for 2 weeks. That place alone would be a fucking nightmare. Can you imagine the entire island of Manhattan? Like, I don't even want to think about it. It's craziness. So, and the thing is, it's not a devastating thing. Like, so there's a electromagnetic pulse that also comes out from a nuclear warhead when it gets blown up. But usually when a nuclear warhead gets blown up, you don't notice the EMP because there's a wave of destruction that kills everything else. However, in this case, it would be just the EMP, no other destructions, right? Now, the more people that know about this, the more people that actually sit down, and I don't know how many people are listening right now, nor does it really matter. One person listening is fine, even if it's just me. If one person sits down, or all of you sit down and write a list, or some of you may already have a list, that is a huge step in the right direction. Because just sharing this information is being a warrior in a garden versus a gardener in a war. Because you have the information, you could spread the information. So now people become aware of things like this. Am I trying to instill fear into the population of America? No, I'm not. I'm trying to do the opposite, because it's going to be too late to be afraid if the shit goes south. So if you're going to have to fear, if this is causing you fear right now, then, I guess be afraid for a minute, stay with me here, and then we'll figure it out. But then later, if it happens, that's when you don't be afraid, right? What else can you do? Well, you could preserve some of your electrical equipment with a couple of simple things. You could buy yourself, you can go to Amazon, you buy yourself an EMP like resistant box for $60, and it's got lights and it's got a coffee maker on it, whatever it is. Or you could just order food from Whole Foods, and they come in these, like, the meat and fish come in these like aluminum, the poppy thingy when you pop them. So it's an aluminum, basically, like bubble wrap. And if you don't have that, just use aluminum foil. Wrap whatever laptop you have, whatever electrical equipment you need, plastic foil, and keep it in the basement. Chances are that the EMP will be strong enough not to, or won't be strong enough rather, sorry, to knock out the laptop and whatever you have. Now, what's the laptop going to do if there's no service? Well, it could do a lot. You could still send out a beacon. I believe you could download a CB radio onto it, although don't quote me on that. But that's the next thing, communication. Communication is going to be the most important thing in all of this, starting from me telling you this now, to you telling anyone else, to if it actually happens, how you will communicate with each other. Obviously, walkie-talkies would work, unless, of course, they get fried by the EMP. So the CB radio, it's like the old truckers, breaker, 19. That's probably your best bet. Now, a lot of people don't have those, and a lot of people don't know how to use them. So I would read up on that if I were you. Maybe get some MREs, meal ready to eat, because then I go back to this quote often, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, because that's exactly what it is. So the sun is completely unpredictable. It could, right now, as I'm talking, could be erupting with a CME, solar flash, and a radio type 2 emission or type 3 emissions. So on this app, the Space Weather app, actually, let's take it back a little bit. Before we get to the Space Weather app. Let's talk about what else happens on a daily basis from the sun that we actually feel, but we don't really realize. Now, personally, before I knew about this, I didn't feel the symptoms of it. But now that I'm aware of its existence, I feel it before having to look it up. So it's not like I look up something and, oh no, the KP index is at 5. That's why I'm so tired. I wake up and I'm tired. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I can't open my eyes. And I'm not sick, but you're just drained of energy. And that's because there's a geomagnetic storm. So whenever there's a small CME or a small flash or small radio type emission, it hits the Earth's geomagnetic field, and it causes a geomagnetic storm, which is basically just magnetic waves that are bouncing around and are completely off balance. Now, the geomagnetic field of the Earth, the whole planet. So let's say this is the Earth, and it looks like a beautiful, basically a magnet, but it's like a wave that's coming out of it, right? It runs on a stable cycle of 7.83 hertz. That's the vibration. It's also called a Schumann resonance. Schumann resonance is when the Earth is harmonious. When it's at its optimized state, it's 7.83. Now, human beings have a heart rate, obviously, and they have something called heart rate variability or rhythm variability. So it's not how quickly your heart is beating or how slowly your heart is beating, but it is the constants of the space between the beats. So if it's beating, so between every beat, there's a space. So if that constant is off balance, people start to get very moody. People start to get suicidal, violent, aggressive. And you could clearly see when the sun has these cycles that have a lot of induced geomagnetic storms, people on a general scale tend to go bananas. Both world wars started during one of these. In general, we get depressed. The homicide rate increases, the suicide rate increases, everything increases. So it's almost like the moon messing with the tides, but on a much bigger scale and a much deeper scale, because it's not an actual, water being shifted. It's energy that's inside of you that gives you life, that essentially gives plants life, and most of everything on this planet, really, it's being messed with. And you don't realize that it's happening until you realize that it's a thing. So unfortunately, probably some of you will start feeling it now after this. So if you download Space Weather Live, it'll give you an alert when there's a KP index. The KP index is how severe the geomagnetic storm is. So if the KP index is at 4, people that are sensitive to this will feel fatigue. Some of them will have headaches. A lot of people will feel weakness in their joints, in their muscles. So they'll have trouble walking, and then they get emotional. That's the most important thing, is you get weirdly emotional because of it. And it's not your hormone imbalance. It's just the way the energy flows through you. your energy ports, so to speak, or your meridians are off balance. And when this happens, people in general start to get a little kooky. Now, the best thing you can do in this case is when you get an alert, and if you see, if any of you are resonating with what I'm saying right now, and you've had this experience before and you didn't know what it was, chances are it's the Schumann resonance, chances are it's a geomagnetic storm, and chances are the way to fix it for you is to get into water. So you have a bath, if you have a pool, anything, just get into a body of water and just sit in there, because that somehow kind of stabilizes you in terms of the joint pains, the headaches, and the emotions. But long story short, it is like I'll wake up and I'll just be completely dead, and I'll have slept for 10 hours. So I don't know what the hell's going on, you know? So this EMP, coronal mass ejection, will send everybody into a slump like this. But on top of that, I don't think people are going to be worried about it because there's going to be no lights. Now, ask yourself this. What would you do with no electricity? Your power goes out right now. What do? You don't really realize how dark is until there's no lights. Everywhere has lights. You know, if you fly over a city, even with a drone, you see a bunch of veins of lights. But if there's none, it's pretty dark. So if there's no moon, it's dark. Even in your house, walking around with a flashlight just to get to your bathroom could be pretty taxing. But for 3 months, then no food, and crazy motherfuckers out there trying to get your food. Some people are going to have fun, don't get me wrong, but most people are going to be a little bit nervous. So I wouldn't go crazy, like wasting all of your time and finances and effort to prepare for this possible event, because I could be completely wrong and it could not happen in this lifetime. It could happen tomorrow and it could happen in 200 years. For the lifespan of the earth, that's still nothing. It's like a fragment of a hair. But for us, it's a lot, because if it happens tomorrow, it's going to be much more important to us than if it happens 200 years from now, obviously. So basically what I'm trying to say is try to get as ready as you can for an event like this. So I'll give you an example of what I've been doing. And I've been doing this, actually, the only reason I started the entire TikTok that I have is because of this. I wanted to tell people about this possible event happening, and I wanted to tell people to be ready for it. I wanted to tell people that they should be aware, not scared, but aware that it's a thing. And as I was telling people, I just decided, like, what am I going to do about this? So how am I going to solve this? You know, for me, am I going to get a bunch of grains? Am I going to get pasta and then beans and just sit on them? You know, pickles. I mean, I could, but 3 months, you're going to have to find your own food, no matter what. I mean, you could have a huge stash. Some people have bunkers. I mean, there's rumors around now. All these like rich billionaires are making their own bunkers underneath the ground with all these commodities and stuff, or accommodations. Sorry. If you don't have that kind of finances, or if you don't have the means of building one, then what are you going to do? So for me, I've been doing things that is conducive of living off of the grid. So if I had to go shoot a deer to eat, I don't have a gun. I do have a gun, but if I don't have a gun, I would have to make a bow and arrow. Do you know how to make a bow and arrow out of wood? Probably not, right? I mean, maybe some of you do. I didn't. I had to make eight, and they break at the worst time. But why am I making bow and arrow? And people look at me like I'm weird too. Like, Dimitri, like, why are you making a bow and arrow? Like, what the fuck? Can't you just go buy a compound bow and have it ready? Yeah, I could. But that's not the point. The point is if the shit goes south, right, and there's no electricity, are you going to turn to the stockbroker that knows everything about cryptocurrency? Or are you going to turn to the motherfucker that knows how to make bows out of wood and shoot deer? Because I don't think cryptocurrency is going to matter to you at that point. Whatever you hold dear, whatever opinions that you have that are detailed to your specific thing are going to be thrown out the window. It's going to be life or death. And it's significant. And I think it's important. But like I said, I guess we should not be scared. So things like that, things like I was doing a little bit more cardio now. So now I just work out a little bit more. I start feeding the deer, because if I feed the deer now, I would never kill a deer. I don't like hunting. I don't like killing things that are not meant to be dead, and I'm not hungry, So I shoot at targets. But God damn it, if there's no food, I'm going to have to, Bambi's going to have to go, unfortunately. I'm sorry. And that's why you take small steps just to be like, okay. And then from there, you could fly, maybe from the hip or shoot from the hip, so to speak. Because if you're unprepared for this, unfortunately, you're going to be one of the very, very many that are not going to make it. Now I'm talking about this like it's going to happen. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to happen. The Carrington event happened. It was unpredictable, but it didn't cause too much devastation because everybody in the 1850s knew how to live off the grid. All of them were living off the grid. I think the first lights were invented, like that Family Guy episode when he lights up the light and he's like, Edison, turn off your lights. It's just the one person that has them. But still, transformers blew up all over the country, meaning all the telegraphs got messed up. So for them, somebody got messages for a day. But can you imagine what would happen now? Like, the planes are in midair, there's satellites orbiting the Earth, there's ships that are operating on GPS navigations. Although hopefully the pilots and the captains of the ships are trained how to sail these ships without GPS. Some of them are pretty much impossible to sail without GPS these days. So it's very, very interesting and very, very ominous of a thing. And the most interesting part is that the one thing that gives us life, right, could take it away just like that. And we never know when it's coming. It's completely unpredictable. And the only thing we have is this app that'll give us maybe a day's notice. And I've had it before. I've had the CME and a radio type 2 emission. This is going to be here in a day. There's somebody called Solar Weather Aware, and there's another one called Suspicious Observer. I think they're on YouTube, and they literally have their entire accounts designed around monitoring this specific event. Right? So another Carrington event, we're overdue, apparently. And the way it happens is the way it happens. So we're just going to have to roll with the punches. Now, the good news about all of this is that there's a different type of sun cycle that happens that Josh and I were actually discussing, I think a couple of weeks ago. And that is in terms of densities. So densities, as we're going towards the sun, we're flying kind of like this. And we're going in and out of fields of density. I believe the cycle is somewhere around 75,000 years before it goes to peak to valley. And right now we are at the brink of going back into the cycle of less density. So I don't know if you've ever seen Ancient Aliens or the History Channel. I'm sure most of you have. There's one of the guys that talks about it. I forget his name. I'm so bad with names, But he talks about basically an energy from the sun that would be, it's going to happen soon. And it's going to zap all of us, essentially. And we're all going to get superpowers. So powers that we now know to be superhuman will be unlocked with us. And that is because we're going to enter into this field of less dense, I guess, solar winds. So we will be able to take in this energy versus it being blocked or, defibrillated by whatever. That's not the right word. Dissolved. He says that they already have a similar ray that they can mimic the energy with. And they zapped a couple of people with this ray and they put them in a room. And apparently the people became euphoric, almost like a psychedelic trip that they were on. And then they started communicating with people from the opposite side of the world. Starting moving things with their minds, like telekinetic powers. So I don't know if this is true. Obviously, nobody knows, but it is what it is. What I can tell you is that it's definitely a possibility because of the global consciousness thing. So we all share the Akashic records. I was actually just explaining this to someone else. The Akashic records aren't this library that's somewhere out in astral realm, and you go up these stairs and you open your book and you see your thing. The reason it's designed that way is so that we could understand how to get there. But basically, the Akashic records is the global collective consciousness. We are all one in this knowing, and your memories are actually stored in this cloud of a consciousness. They're just your memories, so it's easy for you to retrieve them from it. And it's not like a place that you have to go. It's just a different realm. It's a dimension of information. And not only your memories and your experiences and your knowledge is there, it's literally everyone's that's experiencing and contributing to that without even knowing it, because it is what it is. Like you say, oh, he's channeling Freddie Mercury right now, or he's channeling Van Gogh right now. Well, he's not channeling per se the person. He's channeling the part of the global consciousness that is that person. So when Freddie Mercury was singing, he was channeling that same, you know what I mean? Who was the first one? I don't know. But the point is that because that exists, because we know that there is a shared mutual kind of like library of information we call the Akashic Records, or that's why it's called a library. And it's easier for us to access it, but it's hard for us to keep access of it. And when we're up there or in there, that's why the time dilation thing happens. So the person that predicted the sun thing, he didn't predict it, but he said he saw it happen in the near future. He said relatively soon were the exact word to use, is because it's hard to differentiate what's when you're looking at this. So basically your life is a series of Polaroids. But up there in the global consciousness, collective consciousness, the Akashic Records is all jumbled. So you won't know if it's going to happen now or then. You have to leave yourself markers as a remote viewer, as a person that accesses this on a daily basis or whatever, professional basis. You leave yourself markers, little notes that you know where you're looking or what you're looking at. So like for me, for instance, I have little symbols to where if I have to ever remember something, I think about the symbol and then I remember. Much like your list, the 10 steps. Each of those 10 steps should be like embedded into your brain. Because the point is not to have the plan ready, is not to be scared when shit goes down. And let me tell you something right now. If this doesn't happen, then you guys could all call me up and say, Tumultuous, you dumb shit. Nothing happened. Everything is fine. We're all tan and gorgeous. Where's your Carrington event? And you know what I'm going to say? Thank Jesus Christmas it didn't happen. Because better to have it not needed. Right? So the fact that we can collectively think on something and we could pull from this field of consciousness leads me to believe that it is very possible that this energy or this density level that will happen when we get to it will unlock this part of us, this global consciousness, this unified collective information body to spread out through us or into us. So like people on this earth could already communicate telepathically. There's gurus and yogis and whatever that they have lucid dreams and then they meet up by a tree. So like in Africa, they have the tribes people do this, the shamans. So the guy has a dream about a tree and the other guy has a dream about the same tree. They're going to meet at the tree. They both wake up, they go to the tree and then they're there. They communicate with dreams. That's telepathic communication. So just because of the fact that that's possible, I know that this theory of the sun giving us all of these powers is also possible. Is that going to be conducive? That would be interesting, right? If it was going to happen at the same time. So the sun gives us these powers and all the lights go out. Shit. At least we'll be able to inform everybody quicker, right? Somebody's I posted something about this on TikTok and someone said that they feel that the sun has been warmer lately. Like, and not warmer, like it's getting hotter, although it is, excuse me, on their skin. It feels weird, like more intense. And I think that's conducive of less intense, right? Dolores Cannon, I don't know if you're familiar with what she does. She does past life regressions. She was doing a past life regression with someone that you lived a past life on another planet. Or basically we all, according to her, we're all living on different parts of our lives. Some of us have never left Earth. Some of us are from different planets and we've star seeds into, all that stuff. And this person was saying in a complete state of trance, she goes, you need to be outside. You need to go outside and you need to walk outside. The indoor air is stale. She said, it's dirty. You have to go outside. It's very strange. I'm thinking about this because at the time, this was, I think, November. For some reason, and ever since that happened, like this was a week before I saw this video, I have this urge, this compelling urge to go outside every single day, as much as I can. I mean, I would go to work. I would do everything I had to do. But every single waking minute that I could spend outside, that was reasonable, I did. And I found random shit to do. I would cut wood. I would do this. I would do that. But I felt like I needed to be outside. Like I was drawn to it. much like I'm drawn to painting now. I can't stop. I've been painting for like what, 8 months? I have more canvases than most painters have for 2 years. I can't stop. I don't know what it is. So I was compelled to go outside. And now that the sun's a little bit warmer, well, obviously, I'm compelled to go outside and lay down, and I literally just take this in. And usually, and back in the day when I would get a suntan at the beach or, get sunburnt, you would feel fatigued afterwards because it would take a lot out of you, Not anymore. For some reason now, if I don't get the sun, I get fatigued. And if I do, I get this energy, almost like going for a run in the middle of the day, right? Or the beginning of the day, sorry. Another interesting thing that happens to all of us human beings is the vitamin D. So if you drink milk with vitamin D added milk, you're getting your vitamin D. But however, it's usually you don't dissolve all of it because it's not fake, but it's added. The way we obtain vitamin D is we actually make it. We use the sun's rays to convert our cholesterol into vitamin D. We use the sun's rays to take our cholesterol and we convert the cholesterol into vitamin D, which is why they say there's really no such thing as flu season. There's only vitamin D deficiency season. So anywhere, I think, below Virginia, you're good. But anywhere above Virginia and north, everywhere from November to April, everyone in the northern states has a vitamin D deficiency because they're not getting enough sun, warm sun, to convert the cholesterol into vitamin D. So if you go tanning, then you're good to go. But if you don't, that's why flu season happens when it happens, is because it's coming towards the end of that cycle of vitamin D, and now your body is completely susceptible to all these things, which is why staying inside is not a good idea if you want to build up your immune system, if you know what I'm saying. Which is why they said the sunlight kills certain bacteria and viruses. Yeah? Because it kills the virus just because of the heat, but we also convert our cholesterol, which is killing us usually, clogging our arteries, into something that actually helps us and helps our immune system. And this is all the sun. The sun has the light that wakes us up in the morning. So if you need to be awake in the morning, but you don't really want to wake up and you have to force yourself to do it, before you go get a cup of coffee, 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever the sun's up, walk outside and just stand in front of the sun like this. You close your eyes and just not sun gazing for an hour, just fucking 20 seconds to 5 minutes. And the light that emerges only from the sun and only then will actually subconsciously tell your entire organism to wake up and start going. Start moving, which is why if you ever stayed up all night, like studying or partying, whatever the hell it is, usually around 4 or 5 o'clock, you're like this, like, oh my God, like I can't move. But then 7 o'clock comes around if you've made it that far and sun comes up and all of a sudden you got a little pep in your step again. Let's go to the diner. Well, because of that. So the same thing with blue light on the phones. It emits a similar type of light that will shield you and invigorate you and wake you up. So that's it. I remember, I think it's serotonin that it brings on. So something that wakes you up, just like melatonin is when you go to sleep. All right. So where have we been? We've been to the Carrington event. We've been to the domestic terrorists that took over the pipeline. I really should be looking at the chat right now, but I'm not. We looked up what are we going to do in this sense. So I would just tell as many people as you can. If you want a little bit more detail on this, and I mean, there's not going to be too much more that I could tell you, that this person could tell you that I didn't, except just pictures and cool statistics. But there's a TED talk on it. And just literally just do solar flash, and there's a TED talk. Now, the sunspot cycle this time around was a little bit surprising. The reason for that being is the sunspot cycle usually starts, and we have a geomagnetic force around the earth, like I said, as a shield. It acts as a shield and it blocks some of these rays. Now, when the sun emits a type 2 emission, it'll cause a KP index 3 of a storm. So think of the geomagnetic storms like earthquakes. So KP index, when it's at 3, it's like a mild storm. Then it's 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 10. and the 10 is a severe storm, and that's when shit goes bad. So it emitted a radio frequency and it emitted a CME facing Earth, towards us, that was conducive of a, think KP index 3 storm. But in reality, when we got hit with it, it caused a KP 7. So this was just a flash. So it wasn't the flash combined with the CME and the radio type emission, which is the trifecta that we're not looking for. That's what's really going to mess us up. But the point is that what that told us is a geomagnetic force field around the Earth, the shield, is weaker than we anticipated, because a KP index 3 turned into a 7. So it more than doubled just because of the weakness of the shield. Chances are it's not going to hit the US. Maybe it's going to hit Asia. Maybe it's going to hit Africa. Who knows? Maybe it's going to hit Antarctica, and nobody will care except for Admiral Byrd. But just so you know, I would definitely keep my eye to that app, keep my eye to the sky, tell whoever you can about it. And I mean, that's basically the best thing you could do. You could probably get some food. You could probably get some sort of like weapons, or I wouldn't say weapons, probably defense systems, but I would definitely look at something for you to be able to survive without all of this. Where are we right now? Here we go. Let me check out the chat. Because look, it's just me. I love this. Look at this. World for Wendy, I hate variable sleep cycle. I cycle in and out of sleep when I can. That's a good one. Nice. Can it just hit the CCP? Yeah, it would be nice. Biden, hell, no problem with them anyway. Taint tanning works. Does it? That's cool. I shouldn't have read that out loud. Thanks. What's up? You guys are crazy on this chat. 1 second after. What's the book? What book? Great book about all this. What is he talking about? I have no idea what the book is called. Right. So I don't know how long ago this was, but Indestructible said it. The point is, most people won't know right away. The informed will figure it out sooner than others, which is why it's not your duty, so to speak, to tell everyone about this. It's not your necessity to inform everyone. But now that you do know that it is a possibility, and I don't know the name of the book, but it's definitely a TED Talk on it, you should consider the fact that telling people would probably be a good idea. Just because, like, it gets worse. Read the taint tanning. Read the taint. Am I not supposed to read it? Sure, was okay. I don't know. Preparation is the key. Better off being safe than sorry. Correct. But I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Why is that so annoying? I'm going to go ahead and stop this. It's a lot of static. Where's that coming from? It doesn't matter. The point is, yeah, so that's basically what I have for today and this. Let's see what else I can throw in here. It's Carrington, what we did. What am I missing? Food I did. Family. So let's go over the 10 steps. What should a list be consisting of? Like, so if you're going to make a 10-step plan, what are you going to do without the lights? Well, I mean, think about it. What would you do without lights? Flashlights, grain, like pasta and rice, barley, pickles. Learn how to pickle stuff. Learn how to skin a deer. Learn how to kill a deer. Learn, like legit. You should be kind of like in the know about these things anyway, because to tell you the truth, between the CCP and all of this, I'm not sure exactly how long this is going to go down without us needing it. It's one thing to talk about it, but like I say, well, actually, it's not me that says this, but 20 minutes of doing something is worth more than 20 hours of thinking about doing something. But like I said, if you take anything away from this entire conversation, it's good to be ready. It's good to be ready, and it's good to be at least informed about what's going on. Am I even broadcasting anymore? No. Happened. I'm here. Good. But yeah, that's what I got. Tomorrow is, we're doing another show tomorrow, but I'm not sure about what it was going to be on. There was going to be a guest today, but he had to drop out. His name is Rivas Orion. And maybe, hopefully, if he's around tomorrow, we can do that. Rivas is a person who loves the Egyptian everything. He does all of the Egyptian stuff. He does the Pyramid of Giza, the fact that it is basically kind of there's a diagram of the Earth. The recent pyramid that was found made out of black granite, and all those things. He's got extensive details into it, and hopefully tomorrow, if we get him on, we'll be able to do that. So, yeah. Hello. So that was that. There we go. For the first time ever, we went under an hour. What? Just me spitballing. I'll have more info next time. But we've covered everything we need to cover. So thank you very much. Please go ahead, click, smash the buttons, ring the bells. Please subscribe if you haven't already. This has been awesome. My first solo sesh, Insomniac hour. I'm going to get some sleep. Hopefully you do too. And don't be afraid. There's no reason for that. Good night.